This is a Pyramid One International Network presentation.
Victory of the Light with Robert Line Potter Jr.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Victory of Light radio show here on the Pyramid One Network. I want to thank my producer, Bob Charles, and the amazing John Allen of Oz Down Under. I have a lot of family down there. The Potters in the phone book are legendary. We have many pages. My father was born in Dalkeith in Perth, went to Christchurch. I spent a lot of time at Cottesloe down there and love the Perth area and looking forward to get down to Australia later. Actually coming into Sydney, I think, sometime in this coming winter. So anyone has any cool little events out there, I don't require much in fees, usually just to cover my expenses getting in there. I love to share the information. Would be grateful if anyone would like to have me out there. And I've connected some cool people. I think even our guests today, if people want to bring some really good information down Atlanta, Oz Down Under, contact me and see what we can do and get some informational forums going up over there. We can share some information with y'all. I want to recommend you all check out my website, thepromiserevealed.com. I'm pushing up a whole new website now, and in the meantime, we're trying to keep things together. Unfortunately, I had a little crisis with a web person for personal reasons, had to leave immediately off of my website. And so for those of you who've had some issues and stuff, I don't know the back end of these things, and the website's gone down quite a bit. And so I haven't been able to get back or fix it. Want you all to know it's being repaired now. I have a guy on the ball, and we're going to be back on track. For those of you in the inner circle, we are getting those wonderful informations up there for you pretty soon here. You're going to have lots of interesting exclusive content and links for you to listen to. Speaking of exclusive content, today, ladies and gentlemen, it's a very special show, and those of you who have listened to me know that the person I'm speaking about today is one of my heroes, and I have a few heroes in my life. Dr. Frank Strange was one of them, Gabriel Green, J.J. Hurtak, and I have to say Alex Collier has been a tremendous influence in my life. From a very early age in 1978, about the time I heard my first Omnek interview, I was listening to Cosmic Awareness. At that time, I believe the earthly vehicle for that information was Paul Shockley in 78, kind of a very fringe element back then, but he was sharing information, the Dr. Beater takes sharing information about clones and reptilians. So that was kind of the first I had heard of it, and we've all heard the little things coming out, and of course, when the gentleman, Bill Cooper, who unfortunately passed away in a firefight defending his sacred ground there, he ended up dying at the hands of a cabal-based group that were trying to silence him, and they ended up doing a good job. But he was another instrumental person to bring us to a next level of understanding of the truth of what's going on. And we've had a succession of heroes and many unspoken people behind the scenes in our military secret program government behind the scenes who've given their lives, literally, so that the truth may be shared with us. And one of those people who has not given his life, but who is a fighter and who has been putting out tremendous information, has a body of work, ladies and gentlemen, that I recommend you read, is Alex Collier. We're going to be talking with him in just a minute. I'm really excited to announce a couple things. I have a wonderful conference coming up this summer in Mount Shasta. Some of you may have seen it. It's out there. We're getting down to 50 days, and I hope you folks will sign up. It's going to be an amazing event. I haven't had many sign-ups for the 3-day option. I want you all to notice that on that page there, you have to scroll a bit, but the prices you see there are for the 5 days. There are 3-day option tickets available. If you can't make it away, you're in the Bay Area, you're in Portland, you're in Seattle, you're in Utah, you're in Sacramento, you're in Reno or something like that. If you're not too far away and you want to skedaddle over there for a 3-day weekend, it's just around the corner from you, and it's quite doable. The prices are reasonable for 3 days there. We're going to have some incredible musicians. Freedom. We're going to have Shambhala, our MC, and I think we're going to have some rainbow guests there this weekend. I'm trying to make that arrangement. So we have 2 amazing fire pits. Ladies and gentlemen, this is sacred, holy, special space. We are 1 mile below a natural glacial lake on Mount Shasta on the road to Castle Lake. There's a little wooden sign that says Methodist Camp. You won't be able to miss us. We'll have a big presence there on the road, probably with people and cars pulling in. It's a very beautiful site, ladies and gentlemen. This is off the grid. There's no electricity except for a generator. We're hoping that's going to be upgraded to a battery and a propane-filled generator. But we will have electricity for our venue. We are going to have lots of PowerPoint presentations and other information going on there. So don't you worry. It's a beautiful venue. We're going to have a chill lounge outside, speakers tables, some vendors, massage. We're going to have yoga in the morning, pranayama. We have various types of meditations. It's going to be like one of those big conferences, but outdoors and a lot more personal. We're going to build a family feeling. For those of you who think you can't afford to stay in a hotel, you come right up and bring your sleeping bag and tent, and you can sleep on site. We do have showers, we do have bathrooms, and we are going to be catered. We're going to have breakfast, and we're going to have some food, and I'm going to be asking those of you to check that out on the website, The Promise Revealed, upcoming events, and get your tickets. We're down to 50 days now, so if we do sell out, I apologize, but I'm hoping you folks can get your tickets in early. In that event that we're having in Mount Shasta, which is my honor and pleasure to present, I spoke about when I was very young. I heard a radio show, a recording on an old, I think it was cassettes that just came out back then in the 70s, and it was Omnek, and I heard this interview that she did on a radio station. I was very impressed. I just felt this is the real deal. And I took Colonel Stevens to Egypt in 1991 on a conference there on what they call the 1111, and I got to talk to him, and he told me he was coming out with a book with Omnek called From Venus I Came, and sure enough, it came out, and she actually presented in Laughlin, Nevada, at that big UFO event there, and she was well received, and the first time kind of out of the closet in a major way, especially to the UFO field, on her story. And Omnek has no technological information. She has a unique perspective. There are many Venusians here, ladies and gentlemen, thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them in our skies and on missions. But she was the first one to come out publicly and say it. In fact, as far as I know, she's the first extraterrestrial to publicly announce that she's from another planet here. And she's just a sweet lady, has a very wonderful, charismatic personality, always smiling and laughing, quite a joy. She has had a stroke. She is getting along in years. She's 440 years old. You can read her book on omnek.com. But I was really honored. I connected with her, and she's agreed to come. And she's going to be sharing her information and answering questions, and you're going to have a wonderful time with her. I think you can get the book on Kindle for $9.99. I recommend the hard copy. It's really fun to have. It's a beautiful book. Olmec. Her assistant, Anya Schaefer, will be sharing a little bit about that as well. We're also going to have Scott Lemrill, author of the series Agenda, will be sharing information on the spiritual side of soul travel and his experiences with the series race, and he breaks down quite a bit of information in regards to the technologies that are used by the, let's call them the Draco-Orion Complex Alliance, and the artificial intelligence and how that works on human consciousness. Ted Marr, the radio show host and intuitive psychic, will be there. And another wonderful friend of mine from Dr. Frank Strange's days, Craig Campobasso, who is a casting director who has worked with Dr. Frank Strange's directly through Valiant Thor to help create the screenplay version of Stranger at the Pentagon. Stranger at the Pentagon, of course, Dr. Frank Strange's book that he wrote upon meeting Valiant Thor at the Pentagon. I think it was in 1957, and his ongoing life experiences aren't covered in the book, but it's an interesting book. It's kind of like the day the Earth stood still. Valiant Thor landed in Alexandria, Virginia, in the spaceship, got out, was approached by policemen, and ended up going to the Pentagon, taken on a shuttle train, and met Eisenhower and Tricky Dick Nixon there, had lunch with the ladies who thought he was quite charming, and he made an offer from, I will call them benevolent extraterrestrials, which warned the government against engaging with some of the Draco-Reptilian Alliance, and of course we know the story. They went with what I'll call, they made the wrong decision, in my opinion, and we've kind of found ourselves in the situation now. So Valiant Thor is one of the positive extraterrestrials. He's addressed the United Nations Security Council on several occasions, and he acts as a liaison for what I call the Solar Council of the native planets in the system, and integrating in some of our galactic cousins here, go for training and are updated on the Earth situation before they walk amongst us on Earth or begin some of their programs. He's a sponsor and a member of the Order of Melchizedek, which I was happy to join for Dr. Frank Strange. So Stranger at the Pentagon, Craig Campobasso will be sharing a screening of the screenplay. It's a short 20-minute movie, but we'll probably have popcorn and questions and answers, and that's going to be a wonderful night. We're going to have James Gilliland, who is going to be sharing his wonderful information there, and he also is going to be leading the Skywatch with those infrared goggles. For those of you who come, bring your infrared goggles, bring your crystals, and bring your lasers, because I'm going to be doing a healing show with some scalar waves and pyramids. We're going to bring out some of the healing technology of the Pleiadians and Fred Bell. I'm going to share some of that natural radionic energy scalar wave that's going to be out there. Fun. We're going to also have Michael Sala. Michael Sala has been interviewing Corey Goody T via email with questions on his post and coming out. David Wilcox, kind of the main man for Corey. I've been very fortunate. I've spoken with Corey for 3 hours, and I was told by him and by Cobra both that they have nothing against each other. There shouldn't be any sniping or firing amongst people on the internet. They have different information, folks. Everyone has something a little different. Everyone brings something good to the table. I believe that both of these individuals are sincere and honest and are doing the best they can from what they know and understand. I don't believe we have to trash talk the others or to negate their experience just because they have something that doesn't fit. And so they both indicated to me that they felt it was important that people don't, those people are holding awareness about our benevolent space family and of course, the negative space family as well, and things that are happening here. Not to polarize yourself or to go into things like that. I've also been contacted by what's called the Red Dragon ambassador from China, of the elders supposedly with these financial funds, and I'll be interviewing him this week. And so Cobra interview will be coming up, and the Red Dragon ambassador will be coming up shortly. So keep tuned to my radio shows. We're going to have some amazing information coming out here. And I think without further ado, the guest that I've been holding off on for you that's going to be coming to the Mount Shasta Ascension Portal Conference is going to be sharing his information for the first time, I think, since he appeared with Michael Sala. I believe it was 2008 in Hawaii. So we haven't heard from Alex Collier. I think it's been almost 7 years. And it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to support this brother. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a series of heroes, as I mentioned before, who come out with information. We have, like Bill Cooper came out, and Dr. Frank Strange's, and lots of unsung heroes in our military white hat secret space programs who have lost their lives and done a lot of sacrifice to bring the truth to the people. And one of them, in my opinion, is Alex Collier. And if the Galactic Confederation has a Medal of Honor, I've said this many times, it goes to Alex Collier. And Alex, it's an honor to welcome you to the show. And before I welcome you, I want people to understand the situation that's going on with you. And I'm going to just go out and say it because you told it to me some years ago when we were with Lynn Horowitz there. And what happened, ladies and gentlemen, Alex Collier's website had so much truth in it that he received a visit one day at his mailbox from some heavies in the NSA who basically told him and threatened him and his family and said unless he took his website down, it's a problem. He wasn't going to be around much longer. Alex has a beautiful family of wonderful children, and he took the high road in protecting his family and did take down his website. And he called a friend in the NSA who confirmed the information and the directive from Frank Carlucci himself. So our government is acting in a very egregious, hostile, and corrupt manner and threatening its own citizens. And Alex Collier has done nothing but good revealing the public. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to Google search Alex Collier on YouTube. I want you to look at this man's body of work and the information, the spiritual perspective, and the broad-ranging information that he has presented in his legacy to us, where we stand now in relationship with Cobra, Corey, a lot of the people that are coming out now with all this information. If we didn't have Alex Collier hitting the information highways into the light workers' field of information through the Ramsa School talks, his books, we wouldn't be where we are today. And Alex Collier, you may have heard me, I've made some appeals for him recently. He has been jobless and homeless for some time. His children have been taken from him in an unfortunate domestic situation, and Alex has very stoically and very patiently not wanted to let people know. I pressured him heavily to share a couple things, and he is coming back with a vengeance. He is strong. He just recently, we'll get into that a little bit in the show, but just understand, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to Alex, we're talking to a gentleman here who is a very high spiritual brother and who has found himself under attack from hostile forces. And for those of you who've been under oppression from IRS or the government or whatever, some sort of systematic cabal takedown, it's a tough road to hoe. And Alex Collier, you're standing up on your own 2 feet, and it's an honor to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on my show today, Alex.
Well, gosh, Rob, I think we should quit right here.
Dude.
I don't know that I want to ruin your introduction.
No, you're the
oh,
man.
my God. Thank you. Wow. It's an honor to be on Mr. Paula's Hogwarts School of Aliens, Wizardry, and Paranormal. So, oh, goodness.
You know, a lot of people have asked me.
It's been interesting. It's been interesting. It has been very, very challenging because there's nowhere to run. You know, there's just nowhere to go, and you know, you just have to stand in it. That's all you can do.
Hey, some people have been asking, and I'm going to let you share some information here. I just want you to just go and share your wonderful wisdom here. But a lot of people have been concerned and asking how the surgery went, and I'd like you to mention your website. You recently tell people about what happened with your physical health, what you found out, and the good news that just come about.
Okay, well, the procedure went great, and I'm feeling 100% better now, and I don't want to dwell on that. I don't want that in my field anymore. So, let's focus on things that are very positive or more positive, and current events, if that's okay with you.
Fair enough.
I just don't want to go back there, and I don't want to keep that energy in my field.
Very good.
And as far as the website, Mr. James Harkin, by his own grace, created this website that has I think most of, if not all of the video links and things like that, and it's www.alexcollier.org, and he's a remarkable man. He's just a great young man, and I'm so honored that he took time out to do this for me.
Well, you deserve it, and if I had any computer skills, I would lend a hand there for you too. And Alex isn't going to say it, folks. As you said, we're going to move on from his health. Let's just say he had a health crisis. The surgery procedure went well, and he is back, and we're going to focus on good stuff. But I do want to, I'm going to make the appeal. I know he won't, because that's the kind of guy he is. But Alex is in a financial challenge situation, and ladies and gentlemen, he has some, I think, do you still have books there available? Or if you can purchase books, and he also has a donation.
I don't have, I never sold anything.
Oh.
The book was free. It's online.
Okay.
Different places. The tapes, people can burn. No, I didn't. This was not a business. It was not set up to be a business ever. The information was free to everyone and anyone who wanted to listen to it. And that's kind of what it is. So
well, there you go.
That's what it still is.
And we appreciate that. And ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate it, and I know Alex would appreciate it. He does have a donation button for those of you who can resonate with that. You may be in your own situation in the past. If you can help out, please do so. Alex, so tell us, everyone knows that you are in contact with the Andromedans. Can you give us any perspective what's going on these days? There's lots of things happening in the world. I'd like you to just, from your perspective, with your wisdom and what you see going on, just share with us anything you want about your last experiences or what your current situation is with them and what's going on, and anything that people want to know.
Okay. Well, gosh. Q&As are easier because I haven't done this in quite some time. So let's just say that let's start with current events. Current events that are going on in the world. I hear when I have internet access. I get emails and from folks who are like, wow, the information is still relevant today as it was back in the 90s, early 90s. And, I have to agree. I mean, things that they thought were going to happen, earlier, are now coming to fruition now. And, it is really quite interesting to see how the spiritual battle that is going on, that has been going on in higher dimensions, is now being pushed towards Earth and into third density. I mean, you mentioned this about one of your guests that's going to be at the conference, who talks about dreaming and traveling and out-of-body experiences. I'm assuming that falls in line there. Or, those who do Toltec traveling. Many of them are experiencing a great deal of pressure, and many of them cannot get out of their physical bodies at night, or it's really, really hard, or the landscape of the dreams keeps changing, and that's because the dimensional war is pressing against their density. And it is my sincere hope that this doesn't actually break our periphery, our visual periphery of third density, because it's messy. It's really messy, and it's, if I can use an expression, it's pretty much balls to the wall at this point. You know, and many people can experience it. Even people who are not really awake, they know something's wrong. They sense it. They can feel it. Those people who are awake, you know, you're probably watching the news, or you're reading the paper, or you're, you know, listening to the different things that are going on and the different information that's coming out from all kinds of people from all corners of the world, which is absolutely wonderful. And you're probably shaking your head thinking, you know, this is it. You know, you think this is it, and things are coming to a head. And you would be right. Things are coming to a head. And, you know, all the players are lining up. The table is being set as we speak, you know, for the show. You know, the show, whatever show that is that they're going to, Darkseid's going to pull, you know, at the end, their last trump card, their last card, you know, they're going to play it out. They have nothing left to do, because they don't give up, which is unfortunate. So, and many light workers are just having the crap kicked out of them all over the place. And other people who have contact with regressive beings are being tortured, they're being harmed. It's awful. It's just awful. You know, and now there's all kinds of information that is sort of coming out where the CERN device in Switzerland, there's talk that it's going to be turned on and it's going to be used to meld timelines. It's supposed to help take two timelines and meld it into a third timeline that is the New World Order. And I want to go after that, if I can, just for a minute, and just remind you, one of the reasons the AAs came here in the first place is that in the far distant future, our future, tyranny shows up in our galaxy. And they traced it back to our particular solar system. And I can tell you that whatever happens with the New World Order, it's going to be short-lived. Its destiny, it's not built on a firm foundation. That foundation has already been eroded, not only by benevolent forces, but also by those who were actually propping it up. You know, they have been waking up to what the real agenda is, and they have decided, they have made new choices. And Rob, you made a comment about the government misbehaving. As true as that is, they're put in a real awful position, and they made those choices themselves. You know, they did. They made those choices. They were pretty much tricked into those decisions by being told they could keep their weapons. They didn't realize that their most powerful weapons at that time, which were nukes, could never be used against the regressive group that they were dealing with. They just had no idea. They were so outthought. The game was over before they even started it. And now they're in an absolutely horrible position, and probably with the exception of a few, I think if the tables were turned and they had to do it over again, there's no way they would do it. Because everybody's been put in a hurt locker at this point. And this is all good, you know, because sometimes we have to experience terrible things to realize this is not what I want. And then people begin to create what it is that they do want. They change their lives. They dream bigger dreams. They get more focused on what it is they want. They clarify their own special intent, their integrity and their intent. I can't stress intent enough about what it is that they want in their life. and then once you really know that, you can start to create it and pull it towards you and pull it into your life and turn your life around and change things. And never, ever, ever give that up, okay? You're not the property of anyone. You are the property of yourself. You are your own being. Never give up your sovereignty, okay, as an individual or as a nation. You don't have to. It's all a lie. It's all a trick, okay? And the point is to get you to surrender your free will, and you should never, ever do that. And the benevolence would never ask you to do that. In fact, I would encourage you to be sovereign, to be independent, to be self-reliant. So, having said that, geez, Rob, why don't you help me out here?
Well, listen, I've been taking a couple notes here. It's wonderful to hear you sharing. You mentioned 3D spillover, and you meant, of course, the spiritual battle coming down onto the physical plane above Earth, a la Mahabharata type style, where we actually see some battles in the sky kind of thing. I've been told there is some of that going on, and where people are just asleep to it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Alex has extremely limited internet. We're trying to get that rectified so he can get on and thing, but he's like in literally a library situation with limited time, barely able to answer emails. And so if he hasn't gotten back to you or anything, I want to mention that he just hasn't been able to literally get to an internet. But he's not familiar with the Corey Good ET information out yet, the Blue Sphere Alliance, some of the new breaking news that we're hearing that's going on. But there's absolutely a lot of information that you're saying here that is actually still quite relevant. You did mention CERN and timelines. I'd like to ask you a little bit about that. And for those of you folks who are listening to me and may not have heard of Alex Collier before, except in reference, again, go to his website, check out his videos, learn about his work. But when he says A's, he means the Andromedans. I was with Fred Bell, and he was very excited one day, and he told me, hey, the Pleiadians have handed me off to the Andromedans. And I go, okay. And he says, I'm having contacts, and he showed me pictures of some stuff, and they told him to take pictures, and there was, the phenomenon ships that contactees get. And he said, they are the highway patrol of the galaxy. And he really liked them. He said, they're a lot more active, and he says, get ready for big changes. They're not going to pussyfoot around. So, Alex, can you share a little bit? This timeline thing, when we talk about that, we hear the Hopi prophecy of the world's dividing and the wheat separating from the chaff, and the mystical Bible and the references of the ancient time of a great time of choosing and shifting and sifting, where the vibration of the earth changes, and the manifestation of the spiritual consciousness becomes more accessible for those light warriors, or awakened as we call them, and actually becomes more of a problem for those negative regressive beings that have made bad decisions. And I'm not going to apologize for the government guys that made their decisions. Anyone that would threaten you, it's more than a bad decision. From Corey Good ET's information, we find out there's about 10 different secret space programs, bases on Mars, human trafficking, a lot of corruption, trading Earth-based resources, ET technology made by Earth humans on Mars to off-world beings, trading natural resources of the Earth, including humans, you never like to talk about it, for food to reptilians. So many bad things have been continue to go on, and I can't make excuses for them. But we talk about these different groups and timelines and the melding. I don't think the New World Order, I don't think the A's are going to allow this type of thing. Do you think there's any possibility of this taking place? And so my question is do you have any, do you think this timeline meld of CERN could possibly be pulled off with the New World Order, number one? And number two, can you explain to us about the timelines? It's always difficult for those of us who haven't been like you up into a spaceship, looked out over the Earth, and been explained this and shown this type of stuff. So tell us, what is this timeline situation and the multiple timelines and how things are pushed back and things are supposed to happen before, but they're happening now? It might be some sucker to the people who have been waiting for a long time, and there's so many people that are new to this information. And for those of you people who just woke up in 2008 and are just already tired and wondering why it doesn't happen and angry at ETs, we have to take responsibility down here. But there's been a lot of work done for thousands of years by various races and various benevolent souls incarnated on the earth, and we're building on each other. And something has to do with this multidimensional aspect. Can you clear that up for us?
I'll try. I don't know it all, not by any stretch. But I was made aware of at least 3 prominent timelines. One, obviously, that we're in now. The first was, now there may be more, but they were not prominent. And what I mean by prominent is that they were, these prominent timelines were timelines that could alter events in the galaxy. Okay? So the one we're in now, and we'll touch on that last, the first that was created was the Philadelphia experiment. Okay? And the second that was prominent was created during one of the Montauk Project share events. I don't know specifically which one, but there was one in particular where something went out, the chair went out, but when it came back, it brought something back with it. Okay? And because they took it, they didn't put it back, they took it, it kept it open. It kept the timeline open. Okay? Now, the regressives use these timelines to hop in and out and to hide. Even some humans are doing this now. They use these timelines to hide. They hop back in and hop back out, sort of like what you see in the movies. Okay, very similar. And I think in a lot of ways Hollywood's trying to tell us something. Now, do I think CERN's actually going to achieve this event? No, I do not. I don't believe it's going to be allowed whatsoever. A great deal of effort by multiple races that have our best interest at heart, including their own best interest, have been eroding and suppressing and closing those timelines for years. They've been working on it for years. And they've even had some success in shutting them completely off. But I don't know at this particular moment where it actually stands with those timelines. Do I think it's going to be, successful? No, I don't. Remember, they came here to make sure that this didn't go any further because it has future consequences, not only for our planet, but for the galaxy as well. It changes the vibration of the galaxy, and it doesn't benefit the whole. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So, to quote Spock. A timeline is literally a place where people exist unaware that they are actually someplace else. It's almost a shadow self. It could also be where a holograph is created using technology, and people who are kidnapped are put into this holograph thinking that it's real, like the Matrix, but it isn't real. But their consciousness, their intent, creates the physical place. Okay, we are creators first and foremost. All right? And they're using that to create, they're using us to create their density. So that's, something to be aware of. Your ability to create is profound. And they don't have the same ability that we do. Remember, we're operating on 2 to 4% of our DNA. Okay? The rest was turned off. So imagine what would happen if we were on 10%, 15%, 25% if our DNA was turned on. It would be remarkable, but we'd have to be responsible. So to get back to the timelines, I know that they were shutting them down. I've mentioned this in past work. I do not know at the moment where that is at. I think that, and what do I think is going to happen? I think, Rob, based on what I was told by Mornay and Phasaeus when Phasaeus was alive, that they fully expect that the group here was going to play out the second coming. They were going to play out this Book of Revelation scenario because they have vested 1,000 years into creating this myth so that we would create it for them, that we would lead ourselves down this path to subjugation and to slavery and to accept surrendering our sovereignty. So that's what I think is going to happen. And then, I understand there's other information that say that's not. I guess we'll see. I don't want it to happen. I don't want to be right on this at all. But you can see the things playing out, especially with governments, with the Vatican especially stepping forward now, talking about, the elimination of 5 to 6 billion people. It's just remarkable. So I just hope people are paying attention, because you're going to be making choices, and the attention that you give all of this drama is really what they want, because energy flows where attention goes. So heads up on that. And back to you, Rob.
Well, that's a great perspective. I really appreciate that. This second coming perspective, is interesting to me, and because my information, I have a close affinity with the Venusians. I felt Dr. Frank Strange's was a very sincere individual, and I feel that his messages and experiences allegedly with Christ on board the spaceship materializing, and of course we have the books of the wisdom and teachings of the masters of Far East. There does seem to be this level of spiritual consciousness that allows someone to I guess we call it ascended being, who is basically has control of what we would call the third density. That doesn't necessarily make them a god, and I'm not trying to say that Jesus Christ is God. I believe God is in every single aspect of creation and can't be separated from it. Actually, one of the Dead Sea Scrolls speeches that Dr. Frank Strange has revealed to us is a talk where Christ says, it's been said that, I am in the rocks and I am in the hills. And he says, no, that's not true. He says, I am the rocks, I am the hills. And he was speaking from the Christ consciousness perspective, which is the pure light of the soul. And as the soul takes on various bodies in the lower worlds, it seems as though we have filters over ourselves and our light becomes a little dimmer. I see the Christ, or Yehoshua, as a very high being who came here with full amperage and full light, just living a perfect, for his own experience, adherence to truth. Now, people want to put him as a rock star and worship him as a person, and I'm not really down with that kind of understanding. And then a lot of people want to say, if you say, I believe in Jesus Christ, he's my Savior, it's done, your learning experience is over. And I do believe that that is part of the programming. I believe that his life has been misunderstood. I believe that his stories have been manipulated and written hundreds of years after he's left by the Roman Church. And I'll put this out, I'm going to ask you a question here in a second, but Dr. Frank Strange has said that he would go on board Victor 1 And one time he was there, and Valiant Thor was on his right-hand side. The beautiful Vice Commander Teal was on his left-hand side, and Jesus was behind him. And Dr. Frank used to spend hours in what he called the history coins, which were Akashic record. I think they were like little crystal metal coins that he would stick in there, and he would watch. He liked to go back to Bible stuff because he was really into the Bible. He was kind of a religious guy in churches and seminary schools, and he kind of talked like a preacher. And he would start off his meetings, Alex, and he'd say, "The commander told me not to preach, but I can't help it. Hallelujah, amen." But they would tell him not to preach, but he had a beautiful he was telling spiritual principles, kind of in a religious context, but it was really, he said, it's spiritual, not religious. And he was sitting with them in the history room, and supposedly Yehoshua, or they just call him Master or whatever, was behind him and said, "I want to show you something." And they pulled up the Last Supper. And he said there were 200 women in the Garden of Gethsemane, and there was only 5 disciples. So we have a lot of misunderstandings about what really took place. It's been manipulated. Can you share with me, did you have any conversations with the Andromedans in regard to the life of Jesus Christ? And the Venusians information and that I'm contacted with say that the being or the soul energy of that physical incarnation is known as Sananda, and that it's definitely has a influence and a presence on the earth. And I just kind of would like to hear your perspective on Jesus Christ, Yehoshua, Sananda, if the A's told you anything. And I asked you specifically, and I remember you said, "He's your brother." Because I was, people want to put people on a pedestal. And I remember when we had a conversation, I think it was 2008 or 2009 or something, you said, "Rob, he's your brother." And I really like that. But I always want to know this energy about the Christ principle versus this soul who incarnated. And I do think that the certain elements of the benevolent ETs do put a great deal of respect into that lifetime and that mission. Can you share about that? Your perspective, what you know.
Well, okay. When I was young, one of the first things I asked about was there a God? And they said, yes, there is a presence. We don't fully understand it. We're not aware of anyone who fully understands it, even those in higher dimensions, because the essence is essentially self-exploration, and it never ends. Okay? So, having said that, they refer to it as the isness. They don't call it God. They just refer to it as the isness. And the presence is there for all of us to have self-exploration of ourselves. And part of that self-exploration is the creating of physicality, whether it's third density, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, it doesn't matter. Okay, there's a physicality in each of these realms, dimensions, planes. They're different than what we have here, but nonetheless, there is a physicality there. In regards to Jesus, and this is their perspective, they said that the biblical Jesus was in fact a composite character, that the church used the writings and teachings of at least 4 or 5 different people who lived before the time of Jesus, and even those writings after Jesus. And you are correct. The only records that exist are somewhere around the 4th to 5th century, and there's nothing previous to that. I think there's a few pieces of the Nag Hammadi texts from the Essene caves in Quran, and what's interesting is that the church won't really let anyone read those because it tells a different story. And, in their perspective, there were several Yahshuas alive at that time, one of the most prominent was not necessarily a spiritual teacher, even though he was a rabbi. He was also a military leader. And, of course, the church doesn't want anybody to know about that. Now, as far as the Christ energy or a Christed being, it is actually someone who is self-realized and who carries the light. They know where they are at all times, and there are many of those beings, even now on this planet, whether they're humans or not. There are many of those beings here, but they're not looking for followers. What they're doing is they're mentoring quietly others to come into their own power, their own self-empowerment, to be leaders. Okay, and that's how you change. That's truly how you change humanity permanently. Is that you self-empower the people to teach and teach others self-empowerment. And it takes a while. It is not this big show, this big performance. It is not, Sunday afternoon on the television, send me $100 and I'll forgive your sins. It is none of that nonsense. It's also interesting, Rob, that no less than 5 popes of the Roman Catholic Church said in letters and documents that still exist to this day that they can't believe anybody believed the myth of Jesus Christ. So it's an interesting conversation to have. I think what really matters is whether he did or he didn't. None of us were alive at that time to really know. Again, the A's perspective was that he was a character. So I think what really matters is your connection, what you think about your spiritual well-being and your connection to the source of all that is. I think that's really what matters.
I would agree with that. I think, and I'm not, I do have a good perspective. I take a lot of information in, and I don't always discount it because someone goes against something that I think or someone else said that I respect, that I have any problem with it. I'm always open and willing to learn. I made that clear to Corey when I had a conversation with the good ET guy. And for me, I don't have an issue at all with them cobbling together many different lifetimes to create a persona and a mythical character that they could use to manipulate people and to go forward. My sources tell me, and I'm kind of curious about this, is where we get into the ETs with their different perspective and what they tell the different contactees. Now, I don't have a problem that his life was misdirected. Dr. Frank told me another interesting thing about Christ, and I heard another information from someone else that Mary was one of the Vestal Virgins who was in a group that was kind of like the oracles of the Essenes, and they were doing interdimensional communication with spirit, and they kind of had these special sensitive type spiritual girls who were kind of sequestered and kept in this thing, and she had an experience, and allegedly, according to one source I heard, she had a physical encounter with a 6-dimensional being, which to her was like God, and she was a young girl, and they had conjugal relations, and that Yehoshua was actually a part extraterrestrial and a part human incarnation, which was a specific purpose to bring a certain message. So another thing I was told by Dr. Frank was it wasn't so much the Jewish authorities that wanted him dead. It was actually Rome, because he was a threat to them at the time. They felt he was gathering a lot of followers and stuff, and this may speak to that. I don't know if he was the militaristic type person. I don't really get that. I don't feel that is true from my sources, although there may have been another Yeshua. I've also been told that, there's the Isa who died in India, that was a disciple from India or from Greece who was preaching the Christ message but was not Christ. So there's all these different stories, and I don't know if we're ever going to know, but at some point my faith is that the message for me that he bought, not from the Bible, but from my own inner experience of extrapolating various other texts and information, is that we are all children or sons and daughters of a living creative principle, which is the isness. Now, we can't give it a name or a form because it exists in all names and forms. It's immanent and transcendent. So if we try to nail it down, we can't. But it is through faith that this is a benevolent, positive, living intelligence guiding the universe. It's an isness that is in constant state of learning. If you can imagine a waterfall just appearing in midair, it's that type of creative just isness of something that's constantly changing and learning from itself through the body of its own creation, which is itself. So we are all part and parcel of this isness. We are all part and parcel of the absolute, of the infinite mind of God. And that if we understand that and relate to ourselves in our secular, in this particular incarnation, in this 3D, that we're brothers and sisters of a living presence, if we treat each other with respect and love in honoring that familial relationship to all life, then through our faith, if we hold that kingdom in our mind, and as you say, intent. And ladies and gentlemen, I think before the four agreements came out, it was pretty simultaneous. Alex Collier was the one who talked about it is really important, the Andromeda said about intent, and that's a beautiful thing, that if we hold the intent of love and community and relationship, that we will grow and prosper and become more powerful and more in tune with the universal principles of the isness. So I personally feel that this incarnation was like another incarnation, was a planned incarnation by the Sons of Light. If we read The Secret Places of the Lion by George Hunt Williamson, and the messages from the inner retreats of the Great White Brotherhood and some of the extraterrestrial bases that seem to be working for the light, there seems to be a plan whereby certain souls are bought into the earth information to uplift this planet and to bring it into a higher resonance of light. And I believe there is a plan, which I call the plan of redemption. It's a biblical word, but that the Christ personage was an important aspect of disseminating information, and he taught unconditional love and forgiveness, and of course those other things. So I find it interesting that the A's don't know about that incarnation and can't really nail it down to one person, whereas many other extraterrestrial groups, which I highly respect, seem to indicate their own stories and information about it. Many contactees are having revelations of this nature. Not that he needs to be worshipped as a rock star or anything along those lines, but that message and that information that was shared was very important. Can you tell me, I saw that...
Well, you addressed several things in there that I would like to comment on.
Thank you.
And one, it may not be that they don't know exactly. What they shared with me, they did for a reason, okay? I'll just say that. Number two, this is a fascinating conversation and fascinating topic. As far as, Mary Magdalene, I've heard about the things where she was like an oracle of Delphi, and all of that. You know, like you said, so much of history has been burned, destroyed. We may not ever know without some outside intervention. I don't know that the records will exist here, but let me finish my thought here.
Mother Mary, not Mary Magdalene. Mother Mary.
Mother Mary, right? Okay. So now, you know, there are all kinds of people throughout history who have had visions, experiences of, you know, meeting Christ, meeting other saints, etc. And, you know, they believe that they had that experience. And I know from my own personal experience, having been attacked the way I have by people who have never had an experience, there's no way you can tell me I didn't have that moment or that experience, you know, because I was there, I was present, I was alive, I was conscious, I was physically with them, etc. And, you know, people throughout history who many of them are now saints because the church killed them, then turned around and made them a saint, had these experiences. And then you have the Shroud of Turin, one of the most incredible archaeological mysteries that I can imagine on the planet, where the blood on the shroud is has no Y chromosome, you know, has or X chromosome, has no father. Okay, there's only a female chromosome on the blood of a male child. So it's on the male, the imprint of the male on the Shroud of Turin. Absolutely fascinating. And I will share this with you that, you know, the last time it was tested, the church purposely gave them a bad piece of cloth. And the reason they did that is they were afraid that the cloth would prove that the man on the cloth wasn't dead. Okay? They didn't know. So you have to ask yourself, well, what kind of information do they have that they would think this? You know, because they preached something completely different. So, you know, it's just one of those things. And I'm thinking that we're all going to find out all at the same time, and we're all going to have that aha moment, you know, where it fits together and we know exactly what happened. I do not know. And I have spent many, many years pondering it. And
Alex, thank you for your words of wisdom as always. It's an honor to interview you here on my show for the first time. I hope you'll come back as often as you want. If you have a message or another contact with the A's, and A's up there listening, it's time for Alex. He's maybe he can get something exciting before the conference and share with us some new information. I know he'd appreciate it. Our group would appreciate it. And I want to thank you again, Alex, and we'll have you on again. And, of course, folks, come and see us in Mount Shasta. Alex, thank you so much. Victory to the light, brother.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. Take care.
All right. God bless you all.
This is a Pyramid One International Network presentation.
Burn on time. GC, go. Guidance, go. FIDO, go. Prop, go. GNC, go. Max, go. Eagle, go. ECOM, go. FAO, go. HCO, go. DPS, we're go. ACO, go. Booster, go. Surgeon, go.
Okay, engine stop. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
revolution, and we welcome you to Victory of the Light with Robert Line Potter Jr.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start pretty quickly here on another edition of the Victory of the Light radio show. I had a pretty long intro the first time, and I'm going to make it a little shorter and sweet in respect to Alex and, of course, to you folks out there. My website, thepromiserevealed.com. We've got this amazing conference in Mount Shasta coming up this summer, August 19th to the 23rd. We still have plenty of seats available. Please do sign up there. I have 3-day versions. It's a 5-day event. You can come Friday, Saturday, Sunday too. You can camp on site if you want to save money, or you can stay in town, get yourself a room somewhere around. It's going to be a wonderful conference. All the information's on my website, The Promise Revealed. Click on upcoming events or right on the slider banner with Alex's name, my name, James Gilliland, Scott Lemrill, Ted Marr, Craig Campobasso screening Stranger at the Pentagon. Listen to this. If you're coming in now, you're going to want to go back to the first interview with Alex and hear all my little promos there. And, I came into this field kind of wishing I could be just sharing the information. I came in blog, and I spent so much time on the website, I realized that I actually had to make a living. So in my particular case, I do have to sell products and information. And to kind of keep myself going, so I hope you all appreciate that. But Alex has a free book on his website. You can check that out. Oh, Mount Chester. We're also going to have Michael Sala and James Gilliland up there. And don't forget the emissary from Venus, Omnek, who lived on the interior of Venus on the fourth astral plane dimension, was asked by the masters to take on a physical body. She went through a process with her uncle, who was desiring to take some of his ideas for teleportation and make them physical, where you could step into something and appear on another planet far across the universe through a teleportation for physical bodies of 3D. So he actually came on a mission with her. He became physical. Once they become physical, they cannot go back to the astral plane. It's a mission. Olmec did that. And she's the first openly declared emissary of the extraterrestrials to say, I came from another world, I'm living here. Ladies and gentlemen, they've been here for millions of years. We don't know about the contacts that have been going on, but Alex and I can assure you that there has been more open contact with extraterrestrials going on since time immemorial than we don't know. We basically haven't been aware of it for, I don't know, maybe 1,000 years, and even then there was contacts going on, and people were witnessing it. You have hieroglyphs in the Middle Ages of UFO battles in the sky and landings and influences. So the history is going to come out. We're going to break this quarantine. We're going to get a understanding of what's coming up in the near future. Lots of changes going on. We're sharing those at the Mount Shasta Ascension Portal Conference. Also, I'd like to share with you that I am going to be interviewing, or have already interviewed. You'll probably get that the week after Alex he's called the Red Dragon Ambassador from China, contacted me, and he represents some elders who are trying to get some prosperity funds out. I'm not going to give him a softball interview. We're going to ask him some hard questions, and that's going to be an interesting interview for those of you who are following Money in the Financial Reset, the BRICS Alliance, the Swiss Indo, the Nasara, the Cabal, Rothschild, Babylonian slave system, banking nightmare, and how we're going to get out of this, what the plans are. There are some good guys out there working hard behind the scenes, so we're going to be going into that with him. I got the Cobra interview coming up. Michael Sala introduced me to Corey, the good ET guy. For those of you who are listening, he has told me he'll give me an interview. We haven't gotten there yet. I did speak to him for 3 hours. It was an honor and a pleasure. Very interesting guy, very sincere. I really think he's genuine and has an amazing series of informations of what's going on. But we're going to get right back into the conversation, ladies and gentlemen. You want to go back to the first interview. I wanted to keep this short. We were talking with Alex Collier, one of my heroes in my life for spiritual information. Fred Bell was one of my original mentors. Dr. Frank Strange's, Gabriel Green, J.J. Hurtak, even my good brother Cobra, many other wonderful contactees out there. James Doolan, I highly respect. Michael Sala as well. Many others have been very instrumental in my teaching and growth process. And amongst the stellar luminaries in my personal growth has been Alex Collier, and it's an honor to have met him some years ago, where, ladies and gentlemen, I'll mention this again if you didn't hear the first show, he was actually physically threatened by the NSA on direct orders to take down his website and the information he was sharing, because too many people are waking up. And I'm glad that he had the bravery to come out and get the information out as long as he did. His family was threatened, and Alex had to step down. And it's been a tough road to hoe for him, but he has overcome a surgery. For those of you who have asked me, many of you, he is doing well. We talked about that in the first interview. I'm going to have to refer you back to that. We've been talking about timelines, CERN, upcoming changes, the cabal's plans for either a false flag invasion or a second coming event, and we got into the life of Christ and Jesus, my perspective, some various things, and we're going to pick off right where we left off. At first, I want to formally welcome you once again, Alex, to the Victor of Light radio show. Thanks for coming on here again today.
Thank you, Rob. It's an honor and privilege.
No, honor and privilege is all ours. And I know a lot of people, I've always, whenever you've had a little talk in the last couple of years, in the last 5 or 6 years, I've always just zoomed in on it and listened to every single word. It's always fascinating information. We were talking about, the life of Christ and not really knowing, and these different stories and the manipulations of the biblical history is created by a Catholic Church, by the Romans, to manipulate and control, and the destruction of so many records and so much information unknown. And you gave your perspective on the Andromedans and your own. And we all have to kind of just hang in there. For me, it's about we're getting into the area of positive intent and the message of unconditional love and forgiveness. At the same time, understanding the reality of our current situation in the planet, and somehow finding our way through this mess and taking responsibility. Alex, you, like Dr. Fred Bell, Dr. Frank Stranges, all of my wonderful mentors, have always mentioned the same thing. The forces of light are here. They're here to avert a catastrophe of, you said, tyranny appears in the galaxy. From what I understand, it's been here and growing in certain elements through this artificial intelligence. AI is a big thing. We have Terminator. We have the understanding of the government's nanotechnology, the implant procedures. There were dentist chairs available in Atlantis. Some of the secret space program abductees, my lab guys, Simon Parks has come out. He describes it's like a dental chair. You sit in there, you get an artificial implant, it's pushed into your body and manipulated. And this seems to wreak havoc on many worlds and has been the downfall of many civilizations. And it works through a subconscious process in the autonomic nervous system, folks, that you don't even know that you're being programmed. It runs on our Earth through technologies such as fluoridation of water, microwaves, cell phones, ELF waves, genetically altered food. And it's basically a way of jamming the frequency between your lower Earth vehicle and your physical shell, I'll call it, or the robe that you're wearing today, and your eternal nature of your true self soul. So, with these type of things going on, it really is it's like taking 10 fishing lines and messing all. It's a conundrum. It's a mess, or as to quote that JFK, it's a riddle and an enigma wrapped within the mystery of misdirection and lies. It's so difficult for us. We have to find our way through. And I think you mentioned the A's that talked about that the powerful presence and the connection to spirit. I think you told me, did you mention that you were with, was it Visayas or Mornay, and they were on the ship and they were praying, he was praying and crying for the condition of earth, is that correct?
That was Visayas. He was very, very concerned at one particular point. And when I got up there, Mornay met me on the platform where I beamed up, and he took me down a hallway, and as we were walking down the hallway, another door opened, and it was a separate room from the command center where the pilots sit, and Visayas was there, and he was looking at all these charts, and he turned, and he looked very sad, and he said, do none of you realize what you have here? And of course I knew. And there have been times that I've been incredibly embarrassed. Like one time, I was on board one of their motherships, and the center of each of the floors on their craft are parks. And they're, tens of miles wide, where it's nature. And this is where they educate the children in a setting like this. And I remember the first time I walked towards the children with Mornay, the children looked at me and they moved like they were frightened. And I immediately felt it. And Mornay, who was standing right next to me, being telepathic, he knew exactly what I was experiencing. And he said, "It isn't you. We have been teaching them about your race." So there have been so many times where I've been embarrassed. But, at the same time, I know the potential that we have. I know the bad hand we've been dealt from almost the very beginning. It's been amazing. And, we're still here. We still, strive to know, to learn, to educate. I think in a lot of ways today, many of us, we're overwhelmed. We're overwhelmed with data. We're overwhelmed with information. We're overwhelmed with the challenges. We're overwhelmed with stress. Having lived out of a car, I have a very unique perspective, especially to those who haven't. And, we all have questions. We all seek answers. And sometimes it's very, very difficult to quiet down the chatter inside our heads, our egos, to allow that information to come to us. And there are many who won't even believe that it will come. They're not ready for whatever their reasons are. To be quiet, to listen to their own answers, to get their own answers. And I think it's important because I know my experience being a contactee, and from what I understand from other contactees that I've had the honor and privilege of meeting, that their contacts rarely give them information about themselves. They have to figure that out for themselves. They will address virtually anything else except their own situation. And I think that's honorable, because it's all about self-exploration. The journey is all about self-exploration. I also think, Rob, that the addiction that many people on the planet have to material wealth, material things, is because on some level they stopped asking the spiritual questions. The soul is just starving for knowledge. And because they're not, the individual's not asking for that type of information, the material, they focus on the material pleasure, the material wealth, money, all, alcohol, drugs, whatever else it is. I think that's an issue.
Yeah, the consciousness is directed outwards in the spiritual thing. I want to go back, if I may. You had said some stuff there that I found really interesting when you went on board and you mentioned that children were afraid and they've seen what we've done. We have from what I've been told, and you can confirm this, I know they terraform, and you were the first one to really share about the Eden technology, which is a universal situation, which I found really cool and explained a lot, put a lot of things together for me in my life. But they have these, their motherships are literally Eden self-contained biospheres, as you said, with parks that are 10 miles wide. The ship's even larger. And they terraform them. But I've been told, and it seems you can confirm this for me, and I guess we can't really see that far. We look out into the solar system, but our planet is extremely rich in life and abundant in all types of life compared to other worlds. Aren't we pretty, we have quite a paradise here, don't we?
We do. In fact, many of the life forms that were brought here had to be genetically altered to live in this type of environment, on this particular type of planet, and then they were seeded. So it's a library. We have no idea how remarkable the place is because many of us take it for granted.
And we're just allowing it to be.
Not all of us, but many have taken it for granted. And I think that the taking it for granted is because we're more focused on the material aspect of what the planet can give, as opposed to the spiritual aspects of, oh my God, I am living in this amazing place that is constantly alive, that is constantly talking to whoever is going to listen, that is constantly sharing information, data, history, is a DNA library second to none. And I'm referring to all the life forms that are here now and that were here. It's just remarkable. It's just remarkable. And, I have to admit that there have been really times where especially recently with the challenges that I've had where, I'm like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. And, and it isn't my time. And then something will happen. Someone will send me an email or, someone will be kind to me. It just reinvigorates me and it gives me hope. And, I come out of my pity party, for lack of a better word.
Well, yeah. I want to say one thing you said there. You mentioned about entering in the silence, people focused on the outer world. And we don't have those values. They've been bred out of our culture. I think it's been intentional. I think there's, as we know, the Draco reptilians have been using us as a resource, like we use cattle. Maybe there's a little karma there. We spray insecticides on bugs. We got chemtrails. I don't know, comes around, or how that works out, but it definitely seems as though all the ETs that I've talked to, contactees, my ET contacts that I can remember, I know who they are. I've never had an open, hey, I'm an ET, except for one. I've only had one of those, and all the others were, I know who they are, but the information that I get, all of them say, they have two aspects. One is prayer, that is talking to creation. We can have a personal relationship with the infinite hologram of the absolute divine mind that has a purpose and a plan behind all things. And we can listen, meditare, which comes from Latin, wait in the middle. So if we wait in the middle of our breath and remain still, and what they call in the Hindu, the Kriya Yoga, we can tune into what is called the Nada Shringa in the Hindu, which is the neural life illumination force of the cosmos that exists within us. And this is part of a relationship of the tuning into our spiritual vehicle as it anchors itself in the physical body. So I want to emphasize what you said there, the silence. And I find it really hard in my life these days. I'm so very busy to find that silence. And can you share with me and our guests and people who are listening, I guess, you're my guest, excuse me, but when you go on board these ships, and I mean, you've shared with me, like, the ship lands, you go to a meeting space, you get on, and then you go into a bay, and you get there. Are you sometimes teleported as well?
Yes. Sometimes it's hovering off the ground, and I'll walk into a light. It looks like it's about the size of a broomstick, but it's a long, narrow light, and I walk into it, and it just pulls me up. It defragments me, and then reassembles me on board. And sometimes, if we're leaving the Earth's atmosphere, they will put a belt on me so that it will hold, it'll hold my physicality together, especially for hopping dimensions.
Yeah. So this is an interesting thing. When you get there, I mean, and this is a little digressing, folks. This is a little kind of candy for us who are just kind of interested in these little tidbits of facts for these amazing contactees who have repeated physical experiences. And we're getting enough so we can kind of gather a landscape and see the unity in some of the descriptions. When you get there, you must just be, the whole energy and the feeling of your consciousness, you're literally, you've been to the fifth and sixth dimension. What is it like up there? Everything seems kind of solid, but you're in a higher frequency. Can you explain that? It must be the most wonderful experience, of course, of your life, I can imagine, just having this tremendous experience. It must be, aside from, a native going up, ooh, look at the high technology. There's a tremendous change in your feelings. Just share a little bit about that.
Okay, well, I've never been to sixth density. I have been on board at one time where there were sixth density beings visiting the ship, and I could only see them through my peripheral. When I turned my head to look at them directly, my mind simply couldn't conceive them. But for some reason, from my peripheral, I could see something. I could make out certain features. And, when I first started going on board into fifth density, there were a lot of things I couldn't see. I would constantly ask in the very beginning, more to say, well, there's nothing here. And they would just smile, because my eyes and my mind hadn't been trained yet to adapt to the vibration. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's not like you go up there and it's like the mall. It isn't like that at all. Okay. It came over time, and they would just focus. In the beginning, I would be in a room with them, and there would just be conversation, and that's how it started. And as I began to notice things in the room, and my awareness of what was in the room became more prominent, then they would start to move me out to other parts of the ship. So it was a process, okay? It was a process, because my mind didn't know it. It didn't recognize any of it, and therefore it didn't exist, okay? And I think science fiction movies have done great in helping prepare people for this eventuality of meeting star family. So, because now we have it in our consciousness, okay? If you remember, I think it was Columbus or Cortez, their ship was right offshore and the Indians couldn't see it.
Right, yeah.
Because they didn't see it. They never conceived anything like that could exist. So, and it was only a matter of time when they began to visualize and see it. So, and now that's the process. Okay, what was some of the other questions?
Well, the other aspect of that kind of line, and I kind of like to just hear you kind of give my technique of interview sometimes, give you kind of information about what I think you're quite curious about and kind of let you kind of riff on it like you've been doing. It's been doing great. But I'm wondering, what does it feel like? I mean, when you're going up, I mean, I want to hear about your physical sensations. I mean, are you...
you feel lighter. You feel lighter. You feel bigger than you are. I want to say taller. And essentially, I was told by Paseus that there is more spirit in place, because when you move to a higher vibration, you can hold more of your true essence in your physical body. In third density, it's very slow. It's very dense. But as you move up into fourth and then into fifth, and I'm assuming that it exists beyond that, that you feel more of your essence. It's like you're bigger than your body, and you know it.
I asked Dr. Frank about that, too, about what it's like, and he said when he went on board the ships, he kind of would go through like a magnetic decontamination. I imagine Andromeda's got something easier and simpler than that, but he said it was kind of like a magnetic pull, and I'm kind of curious. I've had some back issues. I've got some I had a little surgery myself some years ago, and I thought it was bulletproof. I was extremely athletic most of my life, and I've kind of been humbled as I've reached the mid-50s here. Can I ask, you have a sore leg or a foot, does that all go away? I'm a little overweight. I mean, does your corporeal body change? If I'm a little pudgy, am I still pudgy, but I don't feel the effects of it? What was that like? I mean, did you ever go up with like a sore shoulder and you're there and that's just not even an issue?
I don't recall ever once experiencing any physical pain at all being in their presence. In fact, there isn't any physical pain up until 3 days after I've come back from an experience. And then when gravity really affects my physicality again, because again, the body adjusts, then all the pains come back and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I mean, that's what it is.
So the pains aren't a result of the come down. It's basically you're back into where you were before, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh. They can cure diseases, and things of that nature, and I know there are many people who have experienced such things. But, we are still in a physical form in a very strong gravitational field, which is known as third density to us. So, and our body is aging. That doesn't mean that it can't stay young or stay healthy. It's just that our DNA has been manipulated, or things have been turned off. They were done specifically to shorten our lifespans, which made us all more controllable.
Yeah. So,
So.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. You got this physicality thing, and we've been kind of shortened down here. Fred Bell said the same thing. He said it was kind of a come down when he came back. He didn't like it. He told me that he actually, after he went to the plane, he didn't want to get off like you did that one time. You were really wanting to stay on board. And I love that.
Yeah.
That quote that he said to you. I'll let you share it in a second here. But Fred said that he just preferred to have his contact come out on the ground and talk to him because he said it was kind of really hard to get off the ship and come down. When we talk about healing...
Well, let me just add something to that.
Okay.
I just want to add something to that. Now, I met Fred a couple of times. We never had a real opportunity to spend any real time together and talk shop, so to speak. But I'll tell you what it is for me, is when I'm with them, I never feel safer than when I'm with them. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you talk about bulletproof. I feel absolutely safe, and I feel absolutely whole. And I don't know how else to explain it. I feel complete. Okay? It's like I'm with kindred souls. It's so hard to explain.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to explain because it's something that you experience that's greater than anything you can experience here, only because there's more of you there than there is down here.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
I think also Cobra's information and that resonated to me because I had a contact when I was very young, a military guy who was in a government secret program, came to me at the direction when I was very young and shared with me some things about implants at Gabriel Green's house that kind of prepped me for it. But I think a lot of it is we could be feeling that here, but we really have so much against us that it's tough to change levels like that. I have a question. They can do healings, and I really don't get it. I mean, even if I was on another world and I chose a soul based on their experience or our past soul group experience or the energy to contact, and why don't they heal people? I mean, look, if they use that technology for themselves, and there's nothing wrong when we have a broken bone, what are we going to say? Oh, I can't help you because it's your lesson in your life. I don't buy that. I think we have doctors healing us and fixing us. What's the story? Why can't we, a lot of people have this. So they have all this stuff. Why aren't they sharing it? It really seems...
Okay. I know where you're going with this. Rob, there is so much technology that is so suppressed and buried in black budget projects or in the catacombs and other places, that if they did in fact release it, it would change the world in a week. Okay? But what it does is it empowers us, makes us healthy, makes us stronger, and it makes us more aware. All the things they don't want us to be. Okay? So, and I agree with you. I agree with you about, you wanted this experience. I don't agree with that at all. I don't. I think people can create those extreme situations for themselves, but I don't think consciously they're making the choices to do that. It's just, they're out of balance. Stress, poverty, whatever their circumstances are, it's hard. It is really, really hard on the soul to experience those things day in and day out. But there is technology on the planet, but it's suppressed. It's suppressed. Okay, and you got to remember that. The intention of those ruling the planet now, again, intention is to control. All right? It isn't to benefit. If it was to benefit, we would not be in this place on this planet where the place is turning into a shithole. It wouldn't be this way. Okay? It is like the A's used to say, that we on Earth build weapons of mass death and destruction in the hopes of it keeping us safe. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Because the intention was to use it to destroy something or someone. And we always use it. You know, where most of the ETs, including the regressives, you know, when they create technology for themselves, it's to benefit themselves. When they create something to hurt another group, they make sure that it does, and it will. So, you know, it all comes back again to that intent thing. You know, the intention of the rulers here is to have us all sick, you know, and that's their goal. That's their goal. It gives them a sense of power and authority to control and manipulate humanity.
Yeah,
you know, but that shit's coming to an end here real soon. It really is. I just don't know the day.
Yeah, there's been a lot of information coming out, and I'm not sure what the A's shared with you, and I'm kind of interested. But it's come to light recently, and I've heard various informations on this and different stories. And Dr. Frank talked about the moon, and you've talked about the moon, and it's kind of a neutral zone, and there's tons of groups up there, and they all respect each other's space, even though they're working differently. It's a very complex situation for the Earth ethnocentric view to kind of grasp and gather with that. But when you look at these various groups and their interactions with each other, you kind of wonder, don't any of them want to help us create these things? There is so much suffering here. What do you
listen? It would have been worse if they hadn't intervened. If they had not been intervening, things would have been a hell of a lot worse than they are now. All right, and yes, there is suffering, but it would have been an absolute catastrophe for humanity if there hadn't been intervention. Starting in the 70s. So, you know, just to give it some perspective, it's just that, you know, they need to awaken humanity. And that's the key here. They have to awaken humanity because, you know, in order to not create a space of fear and a space of trust, you know, and to come in and say, okay, look, here's what's been going on. Here is who you are. We can teach you, if you're willing, how to get past these pitfalls of nuclear energy, nuclear weapons, starvation, chemical poisoning of your planets. We can help you turn all this around, but you're the ones who have to do the work. We're not going to do it for you, but we will teach you how to do it. Okay, there's a process of getting us to that place. Okay, and I know it's not happening fast enough for some of us. But that's how it works. You know, in many respects, even though the dark ones are still here, we are already being mentored by the benevolence because they have arrested the catastrophes that these schmucks wanted to do, you know, to the planet to lower the vibration into one of perpetual fear. You know?
I want to thank you for that. That's really important, folks. If you heard that, they want to mentor us, but we have to step into that position. And that's why those of you who are like...
We have to step up.
Yeah.
We have to step up, and we have to know we have to step up, but we have to be cognizant of what's going on and that we have to step up. And we're not there yet. We're getting there, but we're not there yet.
You know, I really appreciate that because it goes back to the emphasis is they want to help us, they are helping us, and I've told that they've saved the planet from total destruction so many times you can't even count. But with that in mind, what do you recommend, Alex Collier, with wisdom of your experience and your broad range of view of thing for the average person out there? I believe that sharing information is one. I also believe that people need to tune into their own inner guidance and set their intent in love and forgiveness and into developing themselves and connecting with the source within so they can make the right choices and decisions. What do you feel, kind of in a practical way, for those of us who are down? I get so many people sending me questions, and so many people are on the brink of just crazy personal life. because they're focused on the outer part of their world. What do you think that we should do, all of the light workers, to kind of help bring this about? And I know this is an individual thing, calling that people should find, but what Sheldon Neidl says, planetary activations, PAL groups, or we call them the Prepare for Change meetings, where people come together, like-minded people, to kind of discuss things. But there's a discussion, and some people are acting more than others. What do you think would benefit humanity to hasten this mentoring process?
Okay. This is my perspective. All right. Based on what I've been taught in my own personal experiences. The first thing you have to do is work on your own self. Okay. You have to be able to step out of your life, no matter how crazy and hectic it is, even if it's for 10 minutes. Step out of your life and try to find a space where you feel sacred. Whether that's taking a bath with candles, whether that's taking a long hot shower, whether that's sitting down and putting on your headphones with the lights off and listening to an awesome piece of music, whatever that music is, whatever you have to do in order to get into that space for yourself, to feel sacred, and then try to hold that space for some time, for as long as you can. That's what I would recommend first. Once you get into that space and you feel that space yourself, and you connect not only to you but to the source. Okay, you will be reinvigorated. You will find perspective, and you will find a lot of the stress in your life just melting away. It will go away. Okay, because you have to focus on the inside, because it's all coming from the inside, all of it. And it's so easy to forget that. And I'm constantly trying to remind myself of that. So it's that. Once you've gotten into that space, once you can hold that space, and you interact with your children, with your mate or your partner, with your neighbors or your people at work, you don't have to say a damn thing. Your vibration will say it all. Okay? That is how we do this. It has to start with each one of us individually. There is no magic pill. There is no software program to fix this. Okay? We are all here on a journey of self-exploration. That's what it's about. And creating physical matter, creating physicality, and creating the bullshit we do in our life is part of the deal. So, again, it comes down to intent. What is it that you want? Okay? Many of us already know what we don't want now. Okay, so now it's time to say, okay, you know what you don't want. Now you need to start really focusing on what you do want, and then making that happen. It is never, ever too late.
Thank you for that. That's beautiful. And ladies and gentlemen, I won't go into details here, but Alex has gone through the ringer, and sometimes he shares with me the ringer he's going through, and I've been through them. I've lived in cars. In this field, you kind of are out there and you're in there, but Alex handles it with an incredible amount of elegance and humor. He talks about tumbling down a rocky mountainside covered in cactus, and he's got me laughing about what's happening. He is really, you do keep a good perspective, as we all must. When it seems so heavy, folks, you have to realize that inner matrix reality, that it is an illusion, and we have to focus our group intent. Is group, and not following anything secular, but do you think group meditation and intent, I plan to do that. I do that at my conferences, where we try to invoke a kind of a sacred space field. Can that amplify the support for ourselves if we gather in groups and kind of have this kind of desire to connect to the silence?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It all works. It all works, especially when people are focused with the same intent. You bet. It makes it happen. It's amazing. So yes.
Okay. I wanted to get your perspective on, well, I guess I'm going to talk about there's all this information now. This Corey guy he was in the secret space program, and I imagine you saw a lot of the stuff that the A's must have taken you around, and as you were shown a lot of things that was going on, of course, with the Royal Reptilians and the Sirkar, and you got these different groups that you described in your work. And again, folks, AlexCollier.org, run by the gentleman James Harkin. All of Alex's information is free. It's available to you to learn some of this history and his perspective on from what he was shown on our situation here. And I was kind of curious, did they show you the different government programs and I know you haven't been on the internet, so I don't want to quiz you on, quote, Corey, the good ET, but he's really giving us a lot of kind of like clarity in the cabal-based space programs. And he's kind of broken it down. There is a positive military group that hasn't been on planet in, 10 years that are positive. And then he said there's an Earth-based positive group that's trying to wrest control from the cabal. And then he says there's this international corporate conglomerate space program. Then he says there's a Nazi kind of breakaway civilization that has bases on the moon and Mars. He's kind of laid out like 7 or 8 different secret space programs with very advanced technologies and satellites around various planets and bases on other planets in the solar system. Were you shown this stuff and not allowed to share it at that time, or can you share it? It's kind of broken quarantine now. Can you tell us what your perspective was, what they shared with you, the different Earth-based groups and what was going on out there? Did you know there were colonies on Mars where they were abducting people?
Yeah, I touched on some of that, but I was also told that I was not the one that was chosen to share it. So even though I knew about it, I knew that it was not mine to share. And there were some things I just haven't shared. And I still haven't, because I've been told it wasn't my place to do that others would come. And I'm good with that. I'm really good with that, So, the more the merrier. But, let me just say this. The group that's out there, introductions, they were introduced. There were some of us that helped introduce those groups to other ETs, okay, so that they could have a different perspective, or could be given a different perspective, and they could learn, how things were really structured. Now, you got to remember that the controllers of the planet think holographically. We do not. So you can have 7 or 8 different programs. Each one is fully operational and isolated and fully independent of its own, but it serves a purpose in the big scheme, which none of the participants in any of the programs would even know about. Okay? We call that word compartmentalization here on Earth. So, there's a lot of that. And at this point, the Nazis, any of that stuff, what's happening outside the Earth, everybody's having to make some choices. Okay? Even those who have held a regressive or negative polarity, well, I can tell you they're all having second thoughts, okay? Because information's coming to light about what's really been going on, and what these programs are now coming to realize is that they're actually the slaves, okay? They're not the free ones. They're the slaves. They're just doing something completely different, totally awesome, but they're slaves too. And the level of control is horrible, absolutely horrible. So, this whole thing is going to come down.
Yeah,
it is. And it has to, because it sucked the life right out of itself. And then that's what the dark does. It just sucks the life right out of itself, and it implodes and destroys itself. That's the mantra. That's what happens. It's just how much destruction can they do all along the way? Well, for this particular galaxy, this particular group of beings, the consortium, they're at the end of the road. They are definitely at the end of the road. It's just how it all plays out has yet to be seen, because it's complicated. You have timelines, time travel, dimensional travel. It's complicated. Okay, it is not like a Hollywood movie. So, and this is very live and it's very real, and it's going to turn out okay. It's just that there is going to be some real serious growing pains and aha moments for all of us here on humanity as we learn the truths about some of our past, about our myths, about our religions. When we learn the truth about what that all really is or what it really isn't, it's going to be difficult for people.
Yeah, I want to go
It's going to be very difficult for people, but it's part of the process.
Yeah, I want to go into your part about the compartmentalization. So, and this can help us with the forgiveness aspect for the individuals involved in these programs. And Alex is right. I mentioned this many times. A lot of the people don't really know what's going on. Some of them are just corrupt politicians taking bribes and things, looking the other way, from the policeman on the street who gets paid to look the other way while some prostitution takes place, not knowing it's a sex slave, and humans are being transported off planets and used as slave labor and sold out by members of humanity. Not that this needs to be completely forgiven, but it needs to be arrested, and those people have to be, take accountability and responsibility for their actions. But as time goes forward, but the compartmentalization, and you mentioned they're changing, they're actually rethinking the situation. You are, because of your internet situation, this Corey Goody T guy has been sharing a lot of this information, and he actually goes into a similar situation. A blue sphere, like an orb, comes, it expands to the size of him and engulfs him, and he finds himself in another location like you did. So that's a pretty high level of transportation for those type of groups. But he's indicated that he was just on Mars. The Cabal had been responding to some of the Blue Sphere Alliance, and the Cabal was saying, "Oh, well, you can come to Mars. We'll show you our bases there. Everything's okay." And they had cleaned up their bases, and they had intelligence. They wanted to go to any base. They said, "Well, we want to go to the base at the South Pole." And they go, "Oh, well, you can't land for an hour." So they had to wait. They sanitized the place. They had this commander there, and all the people that work there think there's been a cataclysm on Earth and that no one's on Earth anymore. So all these people on this base on Mars, the security team that greeted him, they go, "Where are you from?" He goes, "Oh, from Texas." And it freaked him out. And so all of these, people on this one particular base think they're the only, remnant of humanity. And he kind of blew that. They wanted to keep them. They put him in a jail. The delegation from the positive group that were trying to, the Cabal is negotiating because the good guys are telling him it's over, and they're trying to backpedal and make explanations for their situation. And they put him in jail, and the Blue Spheres came in and took the entire team out. They were going to bring back a person from the Earth colonies, a family, and question them and find out what life was there and what they were told. And they had a mother, a daughter, and a mother, father, and a daughter, and they kept the son to keep them quiet. And they knew about it. The impasse in this delegation said, "We know your son's here," and it kind of basically the diplomatic mission ended in a debacle, and the cabal has mud on their face, and they're liars. And according to Dr. Frank Stranges, he told me, he said, Rob, and he's like the Bible thing, he says they're demons. He says they are aligned against God's law. He says will not stop until the end. And I recently received a report on what took place on the council meeting near Lake Mead on the Victor 1 starship. They have these semi-annual meetings of different galactic forces, and they made some decisions to close up some of the influences in Syria from some of the negative forces that are there. So it definitely seems that, as you said, these guys are clamping down on the situation of what's going on. I'd like to go.
Okay, I have a question, though. Okay, you had mentioned earlier that they were sixth-density beings?
Well,
the Blue Sphere people?
Yeah, the Blue Sphere. That's different than Commander Thor's group, but go ahead.
Okay. The A's, and I know the other ones, the Procyons, Sirius A, some of the groups from Cygnus that are benevolent, they are already fully aware of what's going on in these facilities. I'm wondering, how is it that they could show up and let them sanitize and
exactly.
I mean, my guys, they already know what's going on in there. In fact, you've probably got recordings of everything every minute for the last 1,000 years, so they know exactly what's happening and who's doing what.
That's exactly what I said, Alex. I have to agree with you there. And I've spoken with Cobra about that, and we were kind of, talking about this one particular guy is coming out, Corey. I've spoken to him. He's very sincere and honest. He was a MyLab empath, i.e. intuitive empath, and he was put in this space program. And he was just chosen by them because of his spiritual connection and innate psychic abilities for this role that he's playing. It's a very specific role. He doesn't have a lot of broad-range stuff, but it's the cabal that was playing this thing. And they were like, we don't need to do that. I think that this was an exercise. The Blue Sphere Alliance, clearly, none of the positive ETs needed that. And I was like, I don't really get that. Why would they even accept that offer to do that if it wasn't to just show it to them in their face? But it doesn't make sense. I know that I have to say that in defense of that story, if that would lend like doesn't make sense to you, it didn't make sense to me. I think that I'm not sure that in defense of Corey, I don't think that he would be aware of that type of level of technology. He seems to be literally woken up several years ago to his position, and he's kind of in this position now as a liaison. It kind of gives him, he's like a fresh view of the situation other than his time in this kind of a secret space program. So he kind of knows all the dark side. He doesn't really have that much experience with the advanced technologies of the Unified. He told us that there's groups in the Earth-based space program called the Solar Warden, and they thought they were defending the solar system, which is ridiculous. No Earth-based technology could hold a hand to any of those guys if they wanted to unleash the power. It is only the benevolence, would you agree with me, that are holding back the absolute...
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, you'll have to read this stuff when you get your new internet connection going up. I have another question for you. We've got a few minutes here. And cause I was reading one of your articles before with Michael Sala, and of course, again, this goes to how Earth people kind of perceive this space contact. And we're talking about Nibiru and everything. I think Nibiru kind of meant like Babylon, gods from the sky. It's not like one group or being. Everyone thinks like, oh, when the ETs came here many years ago, that everyone would know at the same time. And all these records of Zecharia Sitchin and all these different things are spread over thousands of years, and they're contacting different groups with different agendas, and things were different back then. And everyone thinks that, there was one...
Rob, you're cutting out.
Oh, sorry. People think that there was one agenda. Is that better or no?
Yeah, that's better. That's better.
People were feeling like there's one agenda going on, and it's obviously been multiple agendas. And in one of your talks with Michael Salla, I think it was in a Michael Salla interview, you said, or it was quoting one of your speeches, you said, some people are enamored by the Pleiadians, but I'm not. But there's many different races in the Pleiades. Could you share a little bit about the perspective? Everyone thinks the Pleiadians are blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and the Syrians are a certain group. Can you talk a little bit what you know of the political situation? I know you've talked about the oxygen versus the hydrogen-based races. Folks, fascinating stuff. Do research Alex Collier. Can you share a little bit about the positive and benevolent groups in the Pleiades? And I'm kind of personally interested in the Sirius system. Would you concur? I felt that some of the Sirius influence on Earth has been quite positive, and I know that the Pleiadians themselves had some divisions and there were groups, and that was part of the war in Atlantis, was actually caused by some Pleiadians, correct?
Yeah, that's what I was told as well.
I was told the same thing. So.
Yeah, it became very political, and they just got carried away, and they started throwing meteors at the planet.
Yeah, that's what Norm Paulson said. And Fred kind of concurred. He said they're coming here, if they've changed their tune, they want to clear it up, but they're a little afraid. They don't want to get, the Pleiadians didn't want to get involved, so Fred was really happy when they handed him off the Andromeda. He said, the Andromedans are here, they're going to get involved, and we're going to resolve this. What about the Syrians?
Well, there were some somewhat benevolent groups in Sirius B, but the problem is that they made alliances with other groups through marriages and bloodlines. And, once you start mixing politics, everything changes. And for Sirius B, that's pretty much what happened. Sirius A, from what I understand, stayed away from that. They stayed true to their heritage. They didn't form political alliances, needlessly. They would take up a cause if they felt that it was completely just. But, Sirius B, they kind of got trapped. They got stuck in alliances that not only didn't serve them, didn't really serve anybody, but unfortunately, because they were the lesser empire, they were thrown on the front lines and called to do some dirty shit. Dirty stuff, excuse me. And, it kind of went downhill from there. Once you get a reputation, it's kind of hard to shake it.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
So,
in your writings in the past, I'm pretty well schooled on your information, but you mentioned in some of your writings that they had actually interbred with was it Orion reptilians or something, to kind of like we have here on Earth, where Helen and Troy, that kind of situation where two warring states have their sons and daughters married to kind of calm the tensions.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's exactly it. And the end result of that alliance is what we now know as the Anunnaki.
Oh, okay. And they were the ones that kind of got pushed into the front line to do that stuff here.
They did. And they learned some really bad habits.
They were kind of proxied down here. Were they used in the mind control? And were they kind of implanted as a race to kind of be the pawns or the foot soldiers, the kind of the Marines that, expendable, hit the beach and we're going to lose half of you, but it's worth it for us? I mean, was that kind of...
I don't know anything about the mind control portion of it. I just think that there was an agenda, and it was political, and it was also exploratory, and they were looking for material wealth. They bought into it. And, but I don't know anything about mind control. That I do not know about. Well, I was never told anything specifically about that.
I guess we call it implantation, or there's definitely seems to be some sort of invisible plasma scalar field technology that influences human behavior. And you can maybe talk with Scott Limrill. He was excited that you were coming and is looking forward to it. And we're getting near the end of the time here, folks. And for you who are just fascinated as I am, and I'm so looking forward to this conference in Mount Shasta, realize that, yes, Alex is going to have a 2-hour talk, and we're going to have a panel where we all ask questions and stuff, but realize this is a 5-day event. And at my last conference, each of the speakers had a little entourage, and we have to respect their space. But believe me, you look at my pictures up there from last year's conference. Andrew Basago had a little group of people that went with him wherever, and he was. Most of my speakers are very magnanimous. They love to share this information, and you'll be able to have lunch with Alex, or you can't, Alex, you have to declare your space because you will have a little trail around you. But when we go to the lake for a swim, when we go to the mountain for a meditation, maybe give Alex a ride, or there's chances for interaction. Take a meditation in the morning with Alex and some other people. There will be chances for you folks to ask some personal questions. And again, we have to respect the speaker spaces, but this is not just a dry conference where you go into a fluorescent lighted room and goodbye, he signs a book. We're going to be there kind of as a family, generating an energy field. And you're going to get to have these type of conversations on your own with, James or Omnek and Michael Sala, wonderful speakers and guests. And so I'm going to encourage you once again to come to this Mount Shasta conference, and where we can kind of all, seek the truth together with open hearts and open minds. Alex, I hate to say we have to go, but it's been an hour. But
can I just say something really quick?
Oh, you got
kind of
I'm going to give you a couple more minutes here, but I just want to let you know we're near the end of the hour, and I want to thank you again for coming on. Let's give us some closing thoughts and intent for the future.
Sure.
Give us some time here.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for your help and your support, and just God and everyone else who has helped me. If I didn't have truck troubles, things would be really much better. But I'm just so grateful for all the help and the support, and even just the prayers and good sentiments that people send my way. To the speakers who are in this, this is not the time to get pissy with each other. That's just that crap. There's just no room for that crap. Okay? Everybody has a voice. Everybody has something to say. Everybody has a perspective. Whether you agree with it or not doesn't matter. Let the people choose. Let them decide for themselves. Okay? No one has to choose sides here. Okay? We all want to know what the truth is. And the truth will be something different to each and every one, and they will feel it. They will know what they resonate to, okay? And they will know, because that's the piece of information they're looking for. It is not for any one speaker to go after another. And believe me, I've had plenty of speakers come after me, but you know what? They all have something to say. I respect each and every one of them, even if they're assholes, because they had the courage to stand up in front of people or go on the radio and do what they do. It is not easy. You catch a lot of crap for doing it. And that's what I have to say. Just drop all that nonsense. Okay, just drop it. There's just no room for it now. Things are really serious. Things are heating up. We need to stand together, or at least support each other in some way. And if the only way you can support someone is by being silent, then that's what you need to do. All right, Rob, that's all I got to say.
Well, thank you. I can tell you all the speakers here are very sympathetic. Everyone's been very excited. I know, Craig was happy you were coming, Michael, Scott. Everyone loves you. I mean, no one in my group is in that way with a disagreement or attack, I don't care who they are, they'll be escorted off the property with a thank you and their check and go. But I absolutely agree with you and concur with you there. And I want to thank you again for, when I asked you what can people do, you really hit it on the head, because that's what my physical contact I've recently had told me. Raise your vibration. The energies are coming. You must prepare your body physically and yourself mentally for the changes, and that is how we will uplift this planet. So people, go back to what Alex told us. I think this is one of the key things that Alex told us today. We've gotten some wonderful information, but he said, you tune in within, get yourself into music, whatever those examples he said. He says,
sacred space.
Sacred space.
Find your sacred space.
And radiate it. And that is going to translate to your brothers and sisters and calm the situation and heal us. Alex, thank you for your words of wisdom as always. It's an honor to interview you here on my show for the first time. I hope you'll come back as often as you want. If you have a message or another contact with the A's, and A's up there listening, it's time for Alex. He's maybe he can get something exciting before the conference and share with us some new information. I know he'd appreciate it. Our group would appreciate it. And I want to thank you again, Alex, and we'll have you on again. And, of course, folks, come and see us in Mount Shasta. Alex, thank you so much. Victory to the light, brother.